A contractor once quoted me $11,000 to fix my driveway. He walked the length of it, crouched down at a few spots, shook his head slowly the way they do, and said the whole slab was going. Resurfacing was the only real option, he told me. I almost signed. Then my father-in-law, who spent his life around commercial concrete, looked at the exact same driveway and laughed. He said there was nothing structurally wrong with it. It was just dirty and dull in a way that made it read as old and failing. He fixed the look of it that weekend for about $3, and the contractor never got his check. Here's the thing the quote depended on me not knowing. An old-looking driveway and a failing driveway are two completely different problems, and the industry has every reason to blur the line between them. Real structural failure means cracks that widen and shift, sections that heave or sink, crumbling edges where the concrete is actually breaking apart. But most driveways that get condemned as worn out aren't failing at all. They're stained. The surface has gone gray, blotchy, and tired, and to an untrained eye that looks like age when it's really just decades of grime that never came out. And the reason that grime never comes out explains why so much money gets wasted. Concrete looks like solid stone, but it's structurally closer to a hard sponge threaded with microscopic pores. Over the years, oil, mildew, algae, pollen, and airborne dirt work their way down into those channels and settle well below the surface. Scrubbing the top does almost nothing, because the discoloration lives underneath where a brush can't reach. That's why people conclude the concrete is simply old and beyond saving. It isn't old. It's dirty on the inside, and nothing they've tried reaches down to where the problem actually sits. That's exactly where the $3 fix comes in, and why it embarrasses the expensive alternatives. The secret is a compound called sodium percarbonate. It sounds like a laboratory chemical, but you already know it. It's the oxygen bleach powder in the laundry aisle of any grocery store. When it meets warm water, it splits into washing soda and hydrogen peroxide, and that peroxide releases what chemists call active oxygen, a burst of oxygen molecules that travel down into the concrete pores and attack the bonds holding stains in place. But before we go further, I need to tell you something real quick. My wife bet me nobody would watch a guy talk about driveways for 10 minutes. So if this is helping you at all, hit that subscribe button and help me prove her wrong. I already lose every argument in this house. Let me win this one. This is the distinction that changes how you see your whole driveway. Active oxygen doesn't scrub grime off the top. It penetrates the material, finds the organic staining buried in those pores, and dissolves the invisible glue keeping it stuck. Mildew, algae, leaf tannins, food residue, the general gray film of years. Once that bond breaks, the discoloration floats up and out of the concrete, instead of just getting pushed around. The dirt gets pulled back out of the sponge, which is something no amount of surface scrubbing or pressure could ever accomplish. Here's why contractors would rather you never connect the dots. That same sodium percarbonate gets bottled as premium oxygenated concrete cleaner for $25, and the identical powder sits in the laundry aisle for about $3. Same molecule, same active oxygen, same result on your slab. But more importantly, a driveway that just needed cleaning was never a candidate for an $11,000 resurfacing job in the first place. A clean driveway doesn't generate quotes. A worn-out one does. Now, understanding why this works also explains why some people try oxygen powder and walk away unimpressed. A few things beneath the surface decide the outcome. The first is temperature, because cold water barely wakes the powder up and leaves most of its cleaning power locked inside. Warm water triggers a fast, strong oxygen release, and that faint cloudiness as it dissolves is the reaction firing up. The second is patience, because active oxygen isn't instant. It needs 15 to 20 minutes to migrate into the pores, find the stain molecules, and break them loose, all while the surface stays wet. Nearly everyone who calls oxygen cleaners weak either mixed them cold or rinsed too soon, quietly sabotaging the chemistry before it ever finished. That contractor was betting on one thing, that you'd never know the difference between dirty and dying. My ebook makes sure you never get fooled again. Every stain, every mixing ratio, every pro trick that turns a worn-out slab new again for less than a coffee. Links in the description. Read it once and save yourself thousands. There's also a reason the results look so dramatic. As the oxygen does its work, the loosened grime floats up and the water turns visibly brown and gray with years of embedded filth. That's the buried staining leaving the concrete, and it's why a slab a contractor called dying can look a decade younger by afternoon. It never needed replacing. It needed the dirt pulled out of it. Let me be fair, because not every contractor is running a scam. Genuine structural failure is real, and a slab that's truly heaving or crumbling does need professional work. The problem is that a dull, stained surface gets lumped in with real failure far too often because the cheap explanation doesn't pay anyone. Learning to tell the difference is the single most valuable thing a homeowner can do before writing a 5-figure check. And the economics are almost insulting once you see it clearly. Resurfacing runs many thousands. A professional deep cleaning runs a few hundred. This costs about $3 and roughly 20 minutes of mostly waiting, and it reaches the exact staining those expensive options are quietly charging you to hide. Your driveway doesn't care what a quote says, it only cares what's actually dissolving the dirt inside it. So that's the fix the $11,000 estimate was counting on you never finding. There's one more sign worth learning to read because it settles the whole question fast. Wet the driveway down with a hose and watch what happens as it dries. If the dark, stained look mostly disappears while it's wet and creeps back as it dries, that's dirt, not damage. You're seeing grime soaked into the pores, exactly what oxygen dissolves. But if the cracks stay sharp and the edges stay broken, whether the slab is wet or dry, that's structure, and no cleaner fixes that. 30 seconds with a garden hose tells you which conversation you're actually having with that contractor. Drop a comment and tell me what your driveway looked like before and after. Subscribe if you want the next one. And make sure to check out my ebook, which is linked in the bio and in comments section.